Welcome back to the Mind of Brandon. Today we're going to be talking about God. Is it real? Now I want to start by establishing that this word God is actually pretty subject to interpretation. That is, people use this word in different ways. And I'm not just referring to the difference between God with a capital G and God with a lowercase g. Even God with a capital G is going to be used in different ways by different people. For example, some people will say that they believe in the God of the Bible, while other people will say, I believe in God, but not the God of the Bible. Right? So there really is a bunch of different ways that people use this word, and this does seem to have an effect on just how strongly people believe or don't believe in the existence of God. So sometimes it really just might depend on how you're even using that word. And so you're going to have some people who are really pretty unsure about whether or not God exists, but you're also going to have a couple of different extreme perspectives. On one end, you have people of the attitude that God is a ridiculous concept, obviously it's not real, and on the other hand, you have people of the attitude that it's ridiculous not to believe in God, obviously it is real. What's obvious to me is that these two different perspectives are using the word God in two different ways. I want to tell you all a story about how I was introduced to the concept of God, or at least my earliest recollection of having God explained to me with any detail. I was in second grade, hanging out at recess with a friend of mine, a fellow second grader, and I said to him something along the lines of, I'm hearing this word God a lot. I don't really know what that means. And he got this really concerned look on his face, and he says, oh, wow, you're gonna burn in hell. I, of course, had no idea what he was talking about, so he proceeded to explain. I don't remember word for word what he said, but I do remember coming away with this conception that there was this invisible old man living in the sky who was responsible for the creation of the entire world, all the life on it. He knew everything. He could do anything. He was constantly watching over everyone, judging our actions, trying to decide if we were good or bad. If we were good, then he would bring us up into heaven, which was apparently some kind of paradisical afterlife in the clouds. And if we were bad, then he would send us down to hell to burn for all eternity. And this was really weird. I never heard any of this stuff before, right? I didn't know whether to take this kid seriously. Is he just messing with me? Does he really believe this stuff? So I asked my parents about it, and they told me that this is just something that some people believe. That where these claims are coming from is some ancient book written thousands of years ago, way back when people still thought that the earth was flat. They said that there really wasn't any evidence to substantiate the claims of this book. Now, maybe I was only in second grade, but I knew what that meant. So the next time I saw my friend, I relayed to him what my parents had told me, and he said, well, I'm not going to stop believing in this stuff because I don't want to go to hell. So he and I just kind of found other things to talk about, but the reason I tell this story, I want to kind of have in perspective that the way I personally was introduced to the concept of God, it sounded pretty goddamn ridiculous, right? I mean, an invisible old man in the sky just kind of chilling in the clouds, that's who created the entire world and all the life on it, right? You gotta admit, sounds pretty silly, okay? So, for anyone who's of the attitude, obviously God is real, it's ridiculous not to believe in it, right? You're stupid if you don't believe in God. There is absolutely no justification for that perspective. You need to keep in mind, some people are being taught about the invisible old man in the sky. That's the association they make with God. But this invisible old man in the sky is not the only ridiculous God concept. Some people believe that in addition to being the creator of the universe, God is all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful. Really? An all-loving God created this universe that's filled with suffering? Certainly an all-loving God would not be an all-powerful God. Or an all-powerful God would not be an all-loving God to have created a universe with so much suffering. But what about the other end of the extreme? This attitude that God is a ridiculous concept obviously it's not real. Well, again, that perspective is probably using the word God in a particular way that sets it up to not be real. There might be another way of using it that could make it a little more possible. That said, I've noticed that some people use this word God to refer to whatever it was that set in motion the formation of the universe. Whatever set in motion the formation of the universe, that's God. That seems to be how some people are using this word. So, whereas some people see the Big Bang Theory as an alternative to the God hypothesis, there are those that actually see the Big Bang Theory as reinforcing the God hypothesis. If the universe has a beginning, that's evidence for God. Now, when I was a kid, I was taught that the universe is all that exists. Everything exists as the different parts of the universe. And so that doesn't really jive with this concept that the universe was created by something else. Because there wouldn't be something else if the universe is everything, right? And so if the universe is all that exists, that means that there is no transcendent creator God that predates the universe. But if there is a transcendent creator God that created the universe, well, that means that the universe is not all that exists. And that begs the question, what more specifically is the universe if it's not all that exists? And we have to again ponder this question when we consider the possibility of multiple universes. So, what is the universe if it's not all that exists? Well, you can actually see the universe as the environment that contains galaxies. Okay, I think that's a good way of putting it if you don't want to be dogmatic about this attitude that it must refer to everything in existence, right? So, you can see it as this environment that contains galaxies. And so that allows for the possibility of there being a before the universe and a beyond the universe, even other universes, right? In fact, it was Edwin Hubble who discovered that what we're referring to as the universe, the environment we're referring to as the universe, is expanding. Now, you think about it, that actually demonstrates that the universe is not all that exists. If it's expanding, that means it exists within a larger environment. Because if the universe is all that exists, then it's got nowhere to go. It's already everywhere, right? So that demonstrates that it exists within a larger environment. Now, if you look at the patterns observable in this universe, take into consideration that, you've got these big things made up of smaller things, made up of smaller things, made up of smaller things, and the fact that every naturally occurring thing in this universe is produced in multiples, nothing's really unique. Think about it a second. Is there just one galaxy? No, there's billions of galaxies in the universe. Is there just one star? Of course not. There's billions of stars in each galaxy. Billions of planets, moons, asteroids, comets, and the pattern continues down to the subatomic scale. So, going off of the pattern of evidence, we can make the prediction that there are other universes, right? That would be consistent with the pattern. It would be downright odd if this universe turned out to be the only one. Doesn't mean it's impossible, just not very likely. Okay? So, this can kind of answer the question, what came before the Big Bang, right? Where did the universe come from? Where it came from is the multiverse, right? Now some people think that's a cop-out because when they consider the origins of the universe, what they really want to know is, why is there something instead of nothing, right? Now, this question used to keep me up at night, just boggled my frickin' mind. It really frustrated me thinking about this, right? But after studying in the field of quantum mechanics, more answers have come to light, and the frustration has been lifted. Not that I have all the answers, but it really makes a lot more sense than it used to. So allow me to explain. The reason why there is something instead of nothing is because nothing is an irrational concept. If by nothing we're referring to literally the complete absence of anything at all, including any abstract concept of something with the potential for change. If in our past there was ever a complete absence of anything at all, including any abstract concept of something with the potential for change, then nothing would have changed, and thus we don't exist. Yet here we are, existing. That would seem to kind of debunk the idea altogether, right? And so what this means is that there's always been at least something or some kind of stuff, right? Because something cannot come from nothing. Don't get me wrong, there are physicists that will tell you that they've done experiments that demonstrate something can come from nothing. But how literally should we take them when they use this word nothing? We've already seen that God is subject to interpretation. We've seen that the universe is subject to interpretation. Guess what? Nothing is also subject to interpretation. Hey, what are you up to today? Meh, nothing. I don't know about you. I'm up to about 5'7". Nothing sounds pretty short, right? Talk about taking things literally. Or let's say you're flipping through channels saying, there's nothing on. Well, technically there's plenty on. You just can't find anything that you're particularly interested in watching. So usually when we use the word nothing, it's actually not supposed to be taken to refer to literally the complete absence of anything at all. So when physicists are talking about something coming from nothing, what are they actually talking about there? Well, they're referring to the fact that elementary particles will spontaneously pop into existence out in the vacuum of space. And so they're thinking of that in terms of empty space. Okay? So that's where this concept comes from of something from nothing. Okay? But it turns out with up-to-date quantum mechanics, we know that at every single little point in space, there's an underlying fundamental field of energy. It's not empty, right? It's filled with energy, okay? It exists everywhere. It's in everything. Everything that exists is just different manifestations of this underlying fundamental field of energy, okay? Everything that we perceive as matter, deep down inside at the most microcosmic scale possible, is really just teeny tiny little force fields, little fields of energy. Okay? If you take a depiction of a hydrogen atom, just a typical artistic representation of one, you're going to see a subatomic particle called a proton. And that's going to be sitting at the center of a circle. That circle has at the edge of it a little dot that's labeled as an electron. Okay? And the circle represents a force field surrounding the proton nucleus. The little dot, the electron, that's an elementary particle. Elementary meaning it can't be broken down into smaller parts. And in the field of quantum mechanics, they'll talk about wave-particle duality. What we perceive as a particle of matter, what that actually is more technically, is a teeny tiny little wave of energy. Or in the case of the electron, I've heard it described as a ripple. Okay, so the electron is a little ripple of energy that's moving through that force field that surrounds the proton nucleus. As for the proton nucleus, that's another force field that has at its nucleus 3 more elementary particles that we call quarks. And those are held together by energy fields that we call gluons. So these elementary particles that are spontaneously popping into existence, right? Well, they're really just different manifestations of the underlying fundamental field of energy. They're quantum fluctuations, right? And so these elementary particles, like quarks, for example, those are building blocks for subatomic particles like protons and neutrons, which are building blocks for atoms, which are building blocks for molecules, which are building blocks for the compounds of matter, etc. Okay? And so we know where all this matter comes from. We know it's generating it. It's this underlying fundamental field of energy that exists at every single little point in space, what Albert Einstein called space-time, right? So it's space-time energy, okay? Space-time energy. Out in the vacuum, we just call it vacuum energy, right? Energy is going to behave differently under atmospheric pressure than it will out in a vacuum. Out in a vacuum, it's allowed to just kind of spread out, and in the process, it generates these elementary particles. So, what about the energy? Where did that come from? Well, according to the teachings of Albert Einstein, energy cannot be created, nor can it be destroyed. It can only change. Now, if Einstein's right, and he might be wrong, but we think he's right. If Einstein's right, that means that energy has just always existed. Okay? It requires no creator. It's the one thing that doesn't require a creator. Okay? It's always been. Always these quantum fluctuations. Always manifesting elementary particles, subatomic particles, etc. Now, if you think about it, you can draw some interesting parallels here between this space-time energy and certain conceptions of God. Okay? In Hindu tradition, there's this concept of something called Brahman. Right? Now, Brahman is sometimes thought of as a God concept. Sometimes it's said, well, it's not really a God per se, right? Like I said, God is subject to interpretation. Right? But one of the ways that Brahman has been perceived is that it exists everywhere. It's in everything. Everything that exists is just different manifestations of Brahman, different avatars of Brahman. Right? Sound familiar? And of course, since the space-time energy is responsible for the generation of all this matter, it's the creator of all this matter. Right? There's another parallel to God, the creator. Right? Cannot be created itself. It's the original existence, the first thing that existed. That parallels God as well. Cannot be destroyed. It's impervious, omnipotent, right? That parallels God as well. Cannot be created, cannot be destroyed, can only change. Once heard a professor of classical mythology say something along the lines of, in Greco-Roman tradition, a god by definition is a shapeshifter. Right? Beings that can change their shapes. And so that would be like this space-time energy. It can do that too. It can take all these different forms. So it really does parallel a variety of different God concepts in all sorts of different ways. And so some people actually deify space-time energy itself, whether they realize it or not. If you're just deifying whatever it is that's responsible for all this, then you're deifying space-time energy. One of the people that I'm subscribed to here on YouTube goes by the username Coach Corey Wayne. He's a pickup, dating, seduction, and relationship expert, so watch his videos if you need any help with that stuff, right? But the reason I mention him is because he has also dabbled in the field of quantum mechanics. And what I refer to as space-time energy, he refers to as divine energy, right? And so he actually has what I perceive to be kind of spiritual, metaphysical type beliefs. Basically, his attitude is that the universe will always bring you people and circumstances exactly when you need them, so that you can learn something from them, right? So he says there's no coincidences, right? So yeah, he's got some kind of spiritual beliefs about this space-time energy. He deifies it. That said, in order for me personally to deify this space-time energy, to call it God, there's certain expectations that it has to meet that I don't perceive it to have met. Basically, it has to answer my prayers. It has to be willing to perform miraculous acts that cannot otherwise be scientifically explained. A great example of the kind of miracle I'm talking about would be if there's an amputee surrounded by loved ones and they're all praying for him to regrow his limbs, and then poof, voila, his new limbs materialize. He's got his legs back. Okay, that'd be the kind of thing that I'm talking about, and we just never see anything like that. Since our own brains are made of this space-time energy, we know that it's capable of intellect, sentience, that sort of thing, but is there sort of an overall God consciousness, or does consciousness only exist within our own minds, within the minds of people and other animals, etc.? If God doesn't give us what we pray for, then I see no evidence that there is an overall collective God consciousness, okay? We seem to be lacking that evidence. You'll find all sorts of intelligent design theorists who will, argue with that till they're blue in the face. Oh, no, 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 look at this. This car, it works this way, and the human body works this way, so that's evidence for an intelligent designer. Right? Bottom line is, I'm not going to be convinced until I start seeing miracles. Okay? I don't think that's asking so much. But let me know what you guys think. Comment section down below. Please, enjoy yourselves. Have fun down there. I want to see some discussion. Right? I want to hear what you guys think. That said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Maybe even share it with other people. If you're interested in watching my future videos, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I don't know what I'll be talking about in my next video, so please give me suggestions. I hope to see you all then. Thank you for watching. Peace, and have a good one.